Number 3. The O'Brien Boys. By the fall of 1996, Gary O'Brien and Diana Saunders of Torbay, Newfoundland and Labrador, Canada, had been divorced for some time. The marriage produced 3 sons, Adam, Trevor, and Mitchell. The marriage was also marred with domestic abuse. Gary had a history of mental health issues, which included suicidal thoughts. Saunders ended up moving the boys out of the family home and into an apartment in nearby Mount Pearl. As part of the divorce, Gary was given weekly visitations. On November 9, 1996, Gary and Saunders were talking on the phone discussing that day's visitation. She said that the youngest boy, Mitchell, wasn't feeling well, so he was just going to stay home. Gary insisted that Mitchell come, so Saunders agreed. Gary then came and picked up 14-year-old Adam, 11-year-old Trevor, and 4-year-old Mitchell. At 8:30 that night, Gary called Saunders. He said that he wasn't bringing the children back, and she was never going to see them again. He also told her that he had rigged his house to blow up if anyone went inside of it. Saunders then asked to speak to her sons. Gary said, "Later," and then hung up the phone. Saunders called the police immediately, and they went to Gary's house. His car, a 1989 Ford Tempo, was gone. The police did a check of the house and found that it was booby-trapped. It was rigged to cause 2 400-pound propane tanks to explode. The explosion would have not only destroyed the O'Brien house, it would have leveled several neighboring houses as well. The police were luckily able to disarm the booby trap. The police entered the house, but Gary and the boys were gone. Where Gary took the children and what he did with them are still mysteries. A year after they disappeared, the police were dragging the ocean floor in an area where locals pushed their cars over a cliff and into the water. They found an engine from a 1989 Ford Tempo, which is the type of car that Gary drove. The police checked the serial number on the engine, and it belonged to Gary. No other car parts belonging to Gary, or any trace of Gary and the boys, were found in the ocean. So the police aren't sure if the car went into the ocean or just the engine. The boys' mother, Diana Saunders, thinks that Gary removed the engine beforehand and dumped it in the ocean. She thinks he did this to throw investigators off his trail to make it look like he killed himself and the boys. She also said that he booby-trapped the house to give himself time to get away. Saunders thinks that her sons are still alive and they may be living in an off-the-grid community like a religious commune, and they are cut off from technology. Gary may have also brainwashed them to hate her. Backing up the theory that the boys may still be alive is a call that came into Child Find Canada in 1998, 2 years after Gary and his 3 sons went missing. It was a woman who lived in Thunder Bay, Ontario, which is about 2,000 miles away from where the boys went missing. She said that she recognized the boys from their missing persons flyers. She said that she used to babysit them, and she knew details about the boys, including their nicknames. Unfortunately, the woman didn't give her name, and the police were unable to track her down. Her identity is a mystery to this day. What is also a mystery is the whereabouts of Gary, Adam, Trevor, and Mitchell O'Brien. If they are alive today, Adam would be 35, Trevor would be 32, and Mitchell would be 26. Number 2. The Springfield Three. June 6, 1992 was a day of celebration for 18-year-old Stacy McCall and 19-year-old Suzanne Streeter of Springfield, Missouri. It was the day of their high school graduation. The 2 young women spent time with their families, and then that evening they met up at a friend's house. They planned on driving to a motel in Branson, and then they were going to a water park the next day. Shortly after meeting up, they changed their plans. McCall phoned her mother and told her that they were going to stay the night at a friend's house instead of driving to Branson. Later that night, those plans changed again. The cops were called to the friend's home, so in the early morning hours of June 7th, they went back to Streeter's mother's home. Streeter's mother, Cheryl Levitt, had been home that night, staining a dresser. The next morning, a friend of McCall and Streeter called the house, but no one answered. The friend eventually drove over to the house. Parked outside were McCall, Streeter's, and Levett's cars. The friend rang the doorbell, but no one answered. She tried the door and found it unlocked. She looked around, but no one was home. Throughout the day, about 20 people came to the house looking for the three women. At the time, no one realized how serious the situation was. Then finally, McCall's mother realized that something was terribly wrong, and the police were called. When the police went to the house, they didn't find any signs of a break-in or a struggle. They found all three women's purses placed next to each other at the top of the staircase. They checked Levett's room, and it appears that before she left the house, she was in bed. Her eyeglasses were beside the bed, and there was an open book on the bed. In Streeter's bedroom, the TV was on, but it was only showing static. McCall's clothes were folded and stacked neatly beside a bed. The only clothes that weren't there were her underwear and her t-shirt. The family dog was also there. It was very unusual for the family to leave the dog unattended. The police interviewed the friend of the young women who went to the house on the morning that they went missing. She said that the globe that went over the porch light was broken, but the light bulb itself was fine. Another friend cleaned up the broken globe because at the time they didn't realize that the women were missing and they just wanted to do something nice. The friend also said that when she was in the house, she received 2 disturbing phone calls. She said she only answered the phone because it might have been someone who knew where McCall and Streeter were. Both were from an anonymous man who said disturbing sexual things. He called once and the friend hung up. The man called back nearly immediately. When McCall's mother was in Levett's house, she saw that there was a message on the answering machine. She listened to it, and it was a man saying disturbing sexual things. After listening to it, she accidentally erased it. The police are unsure if the calls are related to the disappearance, but they think it's possible. Massive searches were conducted, but no physical trace of the women were ever found. The only possible clues that several people saw a green 1964 to 1970 Dodge panel van in the area, and one witness was sure that she saw Stacy McCall driving the van. This is the only viable lead that has ever come from the investigation, and what happened to Stacy McCall, Susan Streeter, and Cheryl Levett is a mystery. Number 1. The Johnsons. In late 1969, 22-year-old Frida Dedman, who lived in Montgomery, Alabama, met a young man named Michael Johnson. They started dating, and not long afterwards, Frida became pregnant. In September 1970, she gave birth to a daughter, Sherry. That summer, they moved to Independence, Missouri. On Christmas Eve 1973, Frida and Michael got married. A month later, Frida gave birth to a son named Michael, who was named after his father. In May 1975, the family's landlord called the sheriff's department. He told them he hadn't seen the family for a while. The police went to their home where they met the landlord, and they asked him when he last saw the family. He said that it was in early November, which was 5 months earlier. The police entered the family's home and found an open TV guide. It was open to November 10th, 1973. The police also found some blood on a chair, on a pair of socks, a shirt, and a pair of men's pants. In the closets, they found Frida's clothes, but Michael and the children's clothes were missing. The police interviewed friends, family, and co-workers of the family, and no one remembered seeing them after November 10th, which was the day that the TV guide was opened to. The police also dug into Michael's background and found out that his real name wasn't Michael Johnson. His real name was Henry Lee Harbison, and he was wanted by the FBI for check forgery. He had also served time in Alcatraz and Leavenworth for transporting stolen cars across state lines. The sheriff's department concluded that the family picked up and moved somewhere else to stay ahead of the FBI. They probably just changed their names and were hiding somewhere else. As the years went by and Frida's family didn't hear from her, they began to doubt that is what happened. And in 2004, the sheriff's department announced that they are reopening the case. They had the blood tested, but it was inconclusive. After the case was reopened, the sheriff's department said that there were 3 theories as to what happened to the family. The first theory is that the sheriff's department was correct the first time, and the family simply moved away and assumed new identities. The second theory is that the entire family was killed by a person or persons unknown. Henry Lee Harbison was a member of the Church of the New Song, which is a prison-based Christian movement. His associates at the church said that the family was killed. However, they didn't provide any details backing up that theory. The third theory is that Harbison killed Frida and fled with the children. Frida's family believes this is what really happened. This would explain the bloodstains and why only Frida's clothes were left behind. Her family also thinks that Harbison threatened the landlord, and that is why he didn't report the family missing for 5 months. One possibility is that after killing Frida, he killed the children and himself. But if that is the case, then where are their bodies? Frida's family, on the other hand, think that he fled and he gave the children away. He then established a new identity for himself. They said that Sherry and Michael could still be alive and may not even know that they have family that is looking for them. If they are still alive, Sherry would be 47 and Michael would be 40. If Harbison is still alive, he would be 83. Finally, if Frida is still alive, she would be 70 years old. Thanks a lot for watching today's video. If you liked it, please subscribe for more videos just like this one. Don't forget to visit criminallylisted.com to suggest cases and to buy merch. Please also check out our Patreon page where you can get an exclusive podcast. But that's all for today. Thanks again for watching.